Hey, welcome to Live from America podcast from the Comedy Cellar. This is Hatem. Noam have a meeting. He might not be able to make it tonight, but Lou Perez is here. The author of That Joke Is Not Funny Anymore and comedian and good friend. Hello, Lou.
Hi there.
And also the host of coming soon, a very good podcast called The Wrong Take. Nothing in The Wrong Take?
I think you did a fantastic job, teeing it
Yeah,
up. It was great.
yeah. And our guest of honor is Mr. Charles Love. He is the co-host of the Cut the Ball podcast and the author of Race Crazy, and he's here tonight. Hello, sir. To have
Hello.
you.
Good to be here. Good to be had.
So,
Well,
what's your Cut the Ball? Tell us about your podcast a little bit. What is it about?
well,
You
the
guys discuss everything?
podcast.
Yeah.
Okay, so the podcast is quite simply, two guys, and sometimes more. But no, Wilford Riley is my co-host, and he and I, Shamika, long live Shamika. Shamika was our co-host. She's off on her Blaze and time with Jason Whitlock on Fearless. But we talk about cultural issues and how they relate to everything. So sometimes politics, but that's usually tangentially. But it's generally cultural issues and how they affect day-to-day stuff. And we bring guests on to talk about their books or how they, a lot of times it's because they've done something or said something that went viral. So we talk about that, and we call it Cut the Bull because we have honest conversation, and we say things that a lot of people are afraid to say. Will likes to just say, it's at the end of the day, if is what you're saying true? Because if it's true, that's all that matters. So that, it's kind of a unique approach to the same
Yeah.
topics others talk
Yeah.
about.
Well, tonight or today we're gonna depends when you're listening to this. We're going to talk about like Trump, Iran, but there's an issue that I want to discuss before that. But just back to your podcast, when you say you discuss a lot of culture issue, now a lot of politics and policies are made, and politicians make their career over culture issues, right? So do you think that's a reflection to that, or vice versa? Like, our politicians try to be like, hey, I'm reflecting to the majority of the people, so I'm gonna push that, or it's the opposite, or they come because of these things going on.
I'd love to hear what you two think about that. Personally, I think it's both. I think that, well, as a politician, if they're doing their job, they're supposed to be representing people, so they should be, in some way have the finger on the pulse. The weird thing that's happening today is they're speaking like they speak for the people they represent, but we've created a gap in this elitism in politics, and social media has just made it worse because it makes them want to be celebrities. So now they talk about issues a lot, but they don't really, consort with the people, the disgusting people that they represent. So a lot of times there's a disconnect between what they're saying people want and then what people really want. And I'm sure we're going to get to that in some of the issues we talk about. So that's what I think. I think that for some, I don't want to beat them all up. We do a lot of time. I'll leave it here. We do a lot of beating up on politicians, well deserved. But we just have to temper it, though. We have to keep in mind that there are, if you count in Senate, House, and everywhere, 538 people in government that are, making these decisions. And we all, even those of us in the know, we probably know 40 to 60 of them. The average person knows about 12. Right. So I mean, there's like 500 people in Congress, nobody in the Senate, that nobody knows what they think or what they're doing. They're just doing a job. They may still be doing it poorly, but they're not on social media, gauging what they're going to do because they're trying to get clicks.
Yeah. Lou, you have a lot of books behind you. You must know the answer. So
Yes. Let me reach back and grab a book at random. Here's the answer. Yeah, I think a big part of it, something that Charles touched upon, is the when it comes to social media, it's like anyone who spends too much time on X or Instagram, they could think that that is actually a big part of the world, as opposed to a kind of a smaller percentage of people who are on there. So I think politicians will change their messaging depending on who they're speaking to. So like if you're on X and you're following like politicians, you often see a lot of like, so and so, this congresswoman destroys blank. And Yeah, most of the time they actually never destroy anybody. But it's that thing like, oh, AOC is going at it with Matt Gatz or however you pronounce his name. And it's sort of like that show is for like a specific kind of like online programming. Um, whereas I think there were some years back where there was a Congressman Justin Amash
Hmm.
who I think he attempted to do what I think would be, kind of a very professional, noble thing where he would use his Facebook as a way to tell his constituents the bills that he voted for or voted against and the reasons why. So he was using it as a way to let them into what's going on, from the day to day to his job, and the reasons why he was doing it. But Amash hasn't been in politics for too long, so I don't know if that. There might be a whole subsection of politicians who do just that and actually use social media and whatever they have as a way to actually um, engage with their constituents, as opposed to engaging with a broader audience.
Yeah. Like back in the day, we used to have leaders where they come in with ideas and stuff, and they say, this is what we're gonna do. This is, what we do, and then they get voted, they debate and then they get voted. But now I think they listen is like, okay, I want to win the majority. So what is people are saying, and I'm gonna build my policies around that. So I feel true leaders will come, the pioneers that come in with new ideas and then be, hey, this and that. But cultural issues are, it's funny. I think it's the main thing for a lot of policies and politicians, and it shows us a lot about people. The one thing, if you take any politician, especially somebody who's been alive for a long time, and look at them 20 years ago and now, there's almost not the same thing in everything, gay marriage or whatever. Like there's a lot of things, that they change their mind about it. So, we'll see. But so one of the things that a big news in here in the city, like a couple of weeks ago, a story was Charles, you're involved in it, which is, Manhattan Largent School District. We're talking about banning transgender girls from playing in girls' sport team. So do you want to tell us the story and your involvement in it and all that? Because that's forever debate, obviously. But how did you get involved in it? What's the story and all that?
Well, that was the resolution. And one, it was not banning anything. It was a non-binding resolution.
Mm,
And you really need to be caught up to speed because our board meetings are every month. And yesterday was this month's meeting. So you get a little catch up.
mm,
So to briefly go back, so there was, first of all, so I'm on it's a parent-led council, all parents, and we talked. So I thought we were elected to talk about education issues, how to improve issues, literacy. There's some issues with the building, all that kind of stuff. We don't talk about that stuff. We should. I lament it. I talk about it on every meeting. I throw my hands up. No one cares. So I was elected in July of last year. So from August to now, we've had a meeting every month. And I think we talked about education things about two, to be fair, maybe 2.5 of those, like 8 meetings. So for the first 3 meetings, it was all about race and what Black kids need. Keep in mind, I'm in District 2. I'm a Black man, if you haven't noticed. And we are, Blacks are 7% of the district. Yet we were spending a vast amount of time talking about that. Then it went to LGBTQ issues, and that's what we've been stuck on. Well, no, we did take a break to talk about Israel and Islamophobia and anti-Semitism, not specific to education. And then 5 months on LGBTQ. So from attacking council members for stuff they posted on WhatsApp, to demanding that they remove, to getting upset at me, calling for my recall and another council member because we attended a Moms for Liberty event as speakers. The odd thing is, anyone who knows me, I will speak anywhere anybody goes. So they challenged me for that, but they didn't challenge me. It's okay for me to go speak to the Young Turks or Tavis Smiley or anyone on the left, Mark Lamont Hill, all of whom I spoke to. You invite me to speak 90% of the time, unless you're going to call me names, I go. So yes, I'm going to go when Moms for Liberty invites me to speak, especially about education, because that's what I do. And so they had a meeting where they wanted us removed for that. Then the next month, to counter that, they had a resolution to support LGBT LGBTQ kids who might be bullied. I voted no against that. I don't really go into detail why, because I want to talk about something else. But the reason I voted no was simply because I want all kids to not be bullied. I don't need a resolution for specific kids. So if they think I'm against them, if they wrote a resolution that said I don't want Black kids to be, bullied, I would have voted no to that too. There's already a rule about bullying. Let's enforce the rule and treat everyone with respect and move on. We don't need to split everyone up into these disparate groups in order to treat them all the same. If the argument is to treat them all the same, then we don't treat them different to treat them the same. So that was another month. Then quickly to what you talked about last month, because we've had 3 months of resolution and our council is kind of split between people who are for and against it. So it's almost like they keep combating dueling resolutions. So they put another one on again. And so the one group said, if you take yours off, I'll take mine off. They said no. So there was a resolution to basically reevaluate the gender guidelines because it's been a few years since they did it, 4 or 5 years, to reevaluate, to get more people involved in what the rules should be, and then form a committee to decide what the rules should be. So it was a non-binding resolution to form a committee to talk about what the guidelines might be to possibly make change, or if the committee said no changes, there'd be no changes. So it would be far away from a ban for one, and so it passed, and that's where you saw all the articles and things about it. And we had the public speaking session last month, and a lot of people came to speak out against it, and they were upset. They tried to out people. They tried to get people fired. It passed 8-3. I was one of the people who voted for it because my sense is just if a biological boy wants to be dressed as a stereotypical as a girl, which is funny because they don't like gender norms, but they're okay in gender norms and dressing as women. They should be able to do it. Nobody should bully them. Nobody should be telling them they can't wear a dress in school. If he wants to be called Lisa, call him Lisa. And if you want to play sports, there's intramural sports, you can play sports for fun. But if you want to play competitively, all we're saying is let's check and see if that gives you an unfair advantage. If everyone says it doesn't give you an unfair advantage, fine. If it does, we need to address that. And for that, they're attacking people. Lastly, so this month, yesterday, we had 3 resolutions. For the first time in 6 months, I was excited. They were about actual stuff in the school, class size, things of that nature. Every public speaker at both public speaking sessions only talked about last month's trans issue. So they took over the meeting and they said, every meeting, we're going to come back with more people and we're going to keep talking about this all the time. So our meetings are just going to be conversations about trans.
Lou, what's your thoughts on that? What's your feedback?
Well, I remember when I was in college, and I think it was Mayor Bloomberg who was talking about having like a kind of like a specialized public school where instead of being specialized in being like a performing arts school or a science-based school, it was actually going to be like one for like the LGBT. I don't know if T was still there, but like the LGBT kids. So sort of like a school where kids who identify as, queer or however you want to describe that would feel comfortable going, like a school for them. I don't know whatever came of that, but I remember that was a conversation at the time.
Wow.
And when I was I was in college at the time, and I used to have kind of during lunch, I used to eat with the same kids most of the days. And this table that I sat at, they were all gay guys. They were all gay.
That's why you were there.
Yeah. They were all gay, Black or Puerto Rican guys. And some of them were, in like musical theater, and some of them were, I don't know where the others were. And they were the meanest bitches that you could possibly fucking meet. Dude, we'd be sitting there, and if you walked by and you just happened to be a little overweight, these bitches, the stuff that they would say, sometimes out loud and like to you, talk about bullying. And I was thinking like, holy shit, you have the best of intentions of starting a high school where you want all these, young gay kids to, feel free and safe. And then all you need is like a pack of these fucking wolves to be there to make life miserable. So I don't know if that school ever came to pass, but I think that, for the mental sanity of a lot of kids, it's good. It's probably good that they're in like a mixed school instead of just one where you're always going to be on the catwalk and shit.
Bad news for you. I just sent you all the email. I'm going to read this. February 14th of this year, Lou, proposed New York City trans and queer charter school would encourage 9-year-olds to explore their gender. This is, you talked about that happening a while ago. They're proposing a school in Brooklyn right now to have your, as you say, quote unquote, Lou, not me, mean bitches have their own school.
Wow.
So
Wow.
it's back. It's back.
It's back.
Yeah. So that's an interesting piece there. And I just think we didn't have time, so I'm going to send you some clips from the meeting last night because it got pretty aggressive.
So what's the aggressive part was about? Like about?
Well, no, it's like what if you think that the resolution is wrong, you should be able to speak against it. That's why it's a public speaking forum. That's not my issue. It's just that it's I'm a logic and solutions kind of guy, so it just makes me think it's odd that and you can educate people through stories without a doubt. But this is a public forum about, what we should do, should or should not do in the schools. And what happens, the people come up to speak, and of course they're adults, there are no kids there. And they're not really saying, making an argument of you shouldn't do this and this is why. They're saying you shouldn't do this. You all voted for it because you're ignorant or because you're homophobic. This hurts me personally. Let me tell you that, they're adults. So they're saying, when I was in school, some of the people were a little bit younger, but some came and they wrote us. So when I was in school in 1964, this is how I felt. This is how I felt about schools. Well, no one's saying that you should. Sports was important to me. No one's saying you shouldn't play sports. But then they'll say, this is why. So they'll tell their story about how they were treated in the 80s and 70s or whatever. And then they say, because of that, this is what your resolution is doing, which is not really fair in the sense that even them being honest, some of them would say in the speaking sessions that, but this resolution is not binding. So if it's not binding, it's not really attacking. They claimed that it was an attack on them. We were, removing their humanity. We're acting like they didn't exist. I know I wasn't. I can't speak for other people. And then they'll say things like, and this is just difficult for me because I'm a logical guy. Maybe I take things too literally, but they'll say, I know this resolution is not binding, but I have a problem with it because of what it does, the harm it does to the kids who hear it. And I just think, but the kids aren't hearing it except you keep telling them. There are no kids here. No 8 to 14-year-olds are sitting around watching a 3-hour meeting on the District 2 CEC. So the only reason, if you think this is odd, if you care about the health and the well-being of kids and the social emotional state that they're in, and I'm saying something that's hateful and harmful to them, it would seem odd to me for you to take that tape because they didn't watch it live, go to them and say, look at this evil thing that Charles said about you. So really, in that scenario, which of us is harming the child?
Okay. Well, I think, on the idea of harming a child, I mean, we always see it like with politics where it's like, take somebody's pet project and put a child's face, with it, and like a placard, or the way like Greta Thunberg from Sweden, how the environmentalist movement basically used this girl as a prop, as a political prop, and used her as a defense mechanism too against any criticism, because it's like, well, how do you criticize a child? You must be how dare you? I mean, that was one of her things was how dare you, that meme. But like with this, it's interesting because it's like, all sides of it are talking about harm or potential harm against children. But it seems like the side that I don't know. It seems like one side is allowed to point out like what actual harm would look like. Like, the prospect of high school, like of a biological boy playing sports against women. There have been instances where it is harmful, not only in a way of, those biological males taking spots away from girls and winning and beating them, but also, examples of injuries that are happening where they're injuring girls. But it's like when you bring up those kinds of harms, you're a bigot to do it. But you're allowed to bring up, the potential harms of not allowing that to happen, Well,
I think the conversation should be.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just going to add one piece to that. And the other thing is, it's, I guess, you know, I try to not make it political. I guess to them it is kind of, it's emotional to them because they really care and they're passionate about it, right? But then some of it has a political wing because they're trying to change laws. So the problem with that is we're in a culture where everybody can, this gets to the cut the bull thing. Well, I want everybody to speak. I want them to say what they believe. I think that they should use arguments rather than this is what happened to me 30 years ago, but 100% explaining. A couple of them did say, I played sports, you know, as a girl, maybe they transitioned, but when I was little, I played girl sports and I was living as a girl, and they told what their impact was. I didn't injure anybody, you know, that kind of thing. But a lot of it is just, this
Yeah.
is how I feel about it. But that's fine.
Yeah, I have two questions. First, what age are we talking about in
Right.
your district that you are discussing? And the other thing is you're talking about transitioning from men to women playing female sport, but not the other way. Is that correct?
No, they're talking all. It's just that obviously, if you believe in biological physical differences,
Mm-hmm.
you can transition both ways. But for the most part, people only think one side is going to have an advantage. To be
Okay.
fair,
And
right?
yeah,
Now they say nobody has an advantage, but the ones who think there's an advantage, of course, it's only one way because there were people there who transitioned both ways. Who spoke yesterday? There were people who were biological women who transitioned to men, and the other way around. But they're going to, obviously you're going to say if you're playing this, and the age, I'm sorry, you asked about age. It's school. We're a CEC council for schools. So we're talking school age. So whatever age, and you can't talk about young, really young kids because they don't play competitive sports. So no one's talking intramural sports. We're talking if it's competitive, like if somebody's trying to play basketball to get a scholarship. So
So
of
we're
course
talking about high school?
that's going to be a certain age. Yeah. You know,
Yeah.
they start around middle school and then high school is around what you're talking about from the age standpoint.
So when you guys talk, do you like from the like from both sides, do you have just people that represent their point of view and feelings, or do you have experts? Like do you have like say coaches, doctors, former athlete, anything like that from both sides of the argument, or no?
Well, so I wasn't here at the time. So there's two interesting points. I'm on the council, but I'm there kind of as an observer because I vote whatever I feel about it. I read the stuff, but I don't discuss it because I'm there to talk about education. If what we're discussing is not affecting literacy, graduation rates, and things of that nature, school safety specifically, I don't want to comment on it. So I just sit there until it's time to vote and I say nothing. But the others, the whole point of them, the ones who sponsored the resolution. I wasn't here at the time, but their claim and the information they had at the time was when the city set their gender guidelines, they did ask, but they didn't have a well-rounded group. They were kind of partisan in the sense, like on the issue, in the sense that they had views, they agreed with the one side, so they went with the one side, and the other side didn't get as big of a voice. So that's it. But that's why the resolution was presented. As far as who's there, that was what I was going to get to. I was saying it's totally fine for them to bring that. They talk mostly in stories, but some of them were actually, one was a therapist. A couple of them were people who had played sports physically, specifically at that age, and they talked about their differences and you know, that kind of thing. Not many exports, because you got to realize this is the problem. Everyone should be able to speak, but because of the culture we've created, they rallied. They openly said, we rallied this because last month when it was passed, it wasn't that many people there. It was a decent crowd. They said, we're going to get more and we're going to come every month. So they're bringing people. Well, the other side doesn't do that, or they're afraid. And who's going to bring into a hostile environment like that their 16-year-old daughter to speak about, you know, why they don't feel comfortable? Right? Because obviously, whatever you agree, common sense and fairness will say there are voices on the other side. So here's my point. Everybody, even they would agree that they might disagree with the voices, but there are plenty of voices on the other side. Plenty. Not one person. This has to be a record in the CEC meeting. They've had plenty of contentious debates, plenty of times where people came out and hundreds of people came out and you had a long list of people speaking. But they're usually upset about that resolution. So they're speaking about that resolution. Yesterday, we had, I don't know, about 60 or so people there, a lot of them speaking. Not one of them was there to speak on anything that we were there for to meet. They came to voice their displeasure with last month's resolution. And I'm saying that no one in that room was there to say, well, I agree with the resolution, because you're not going to rally those people. They're either going to not come because of fear. They're not, you know, they're not going to come because they don't want to be outed and attacked because, you know, some of the members were attacked for voting yes. They're not going to come because they know that, because they're busy and they know the resolution is non-binding. So what's the point of wasting my time and going out to speak when nothing's going to happen anyway? So you have a room that's skewed. So of course you get all these articles. They're like, look, everyone was up in arms because only people who were up in arms came. It was skewed a certain way. So you don't really get a debate because you can't debate. It's public speaking. You can come and say whatever you want to say, but you really can't come and debate us on the board. You can't really debate other parents. So you just say your piece and everybody's saying something on one side because the other side's not there.
Charles, I was going to ask, like, is there, like a point of order where, it's like, okay, you have to stay on topic, or is it you get your 2 or 3 minutes?
Public speaking, you
get
get your time to speak on the resolution. The issue we have, and again, I'm going to send you the clip so you'll be able to see it, is that the president, so I feel so sorry for him, does this long setup about we'll be respectful, you get 2 opportunities to speak, whatever you want to say, we don't control it. But minute and a half, we normally do 2 minutes, but because we saw there were a lot of people, minute and a half, and no one respected it. And they were like rude about it, like, I don't have to. I'm going to speak whatever I want, right? So then it becomes that. So you just keep going and going. So that's what happened. It happened last month and it happened this month. They're just like, we're just going to come and we're not going to respect your rules. Every month has a section where the superintendent comes and gives us updates about what the DOE is doing. And they interrupted him while he was speaking, or they stood behind him. They made these really wonderful, flashy signs with rhyming names and colorful. I mean, they got a budget, right? This is the movement. That's what I'm saying. And you don't have that on the other side. Not that I'm asking for it, because what I don't want is like 400 people up there, 100 of them like that, and then 200 people saying, you're not a girl, you crazy. Then you really create this really.
I think everybody should have the right to debate, like you said, and say their point of view and have experts and stuff like that. But I feel like a lot of times if it's not healthy, like when you describe like people go overtime or discuss something without experts and stuff like that, what's gonna end up happening are people not saying what they really want to say from both sides, and they're just gonna vote in a certain way. That's why a lot of votes, like you look at the expectation of who's gonna win versus who's actually going to win. And it's always different because people is like, what? I'm tired of arguing with this and cancel culture, obviously, and stuff like that. But I feel like
no way that they have to believe that you can't get more than 50 people to disagree with them. They just, I mean, like, whatever you think on this issue, I'm just being honest. There's no way that every person in the city agrees with them, right? Everybody would say that. Yet everyone in that room agreed with them. So you have to say,
well, also, also I think, I know, like Hatem and yourself and Noam, who's normally, co-host here, you guys are legitimately interested in debate. You actually want to hear sides and go back and forth and counter and all that. And the fact of the matter is, most people, especially on issues like this, have no interest whatsoever in debate. I mean, what you're describing there is basically, we don't need arguments. What we need are numbers.
Right.
And that's often the case too, when we are, living, in a democracy, at least on, on the local level, where it's like, I don't need to change anybody's mind. All I need to do is to make sure that everyone who agrees with me shows up. Whether it's at the ballot box or shows up to these monthly meetings. And it's unfortunate, but it's the reality. I mean, the idea that we're even having this back and forth debate on whether or not boys who have gone through puberty have a physical advantage over girls who have gone through puberty is just it's like, what are we even talking about here?
It's funny you mentioned that, because one of the speakers who you asked about experts, one of the speakers did relay their own experience, but as an athlete, and they said there's already systems in place, and it was just kind of like you're slightly contradicting your own point, because the point was there are systems in place and there are rules I have to follow. They measure my testosterone levels. So this was a trans woman. So they measure my testosterone levels, and there's certain levels they have to be at. I think that's fair, actually. The issue is you can't do that in high school. So you're saying that they should be able to play, but you have to level the playing field. So it almost like in that one instance, I'm sure there are other arguments against it, you're agreeing with the resolution. You're saying that they should be able to play as long as it's fair. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying anything different.
Yeah, I think there's two sides to it. One is competitive sports, and one is how sports important in education level, like as a student. And I think both sides, or may, I would hope that both sides are the main concern is the kids. Not their own agenda and not what they're fighting for, not whatever, but the kids. What is it best for the kids at that age? Obviously, in competing is a different thing. But what's interesting when I was talking to Lou, the reason I was in the beginning, like the first time I heard about the whole thing is that this email that I got. Let me see if I can share it. I don't know if you saw that before. Have you seen that?
Oh God, no, but I see who it is, and I already like, oh, he calls me MAGA.
Yeah.
Side note, I'm not MAGA and I don't talk about politics, but I'm MAGA. What did he say?
No, this I know him very well. He's a good dude. He calls you that. I don't
He's
know.
not a good dude.
He was
No one who attacks me without knowing me is a good dude. I'm sorry. But go on,
he
I'm sorry.
attacked you personally?
Well, when I spoke at the Mons for Liberty, he was standing outside. We invited him to speak. He's standing outside saying, MAGA came to New York today and we shut him down. I'm like, dude, you represent me. I live in your borough. Would you talk to me? Doesn't talk. He makes
that's
everything
interesting that he
political.
said that.
Yeah. No, but what did it say in the email?
No, in the email, hold on. I mean, this is email sent for, it's about your district, about the meeting that we just talked
right.
about,
And
So
it didn't say MAGA?
no MAGA here, but he did say the red wave is trying to come in. Council 2, largest district in Manhattan, passed a resolution. This is what I'm saying, seeking to ban, but you tell me this is not what's going on, right?
Nope.
Ban trans kids from school sports. I mean,
the resolution is posted publicly. People can read it. They just don't care.
Yeah.
Even that sentence just says it passed a resolution seeking to ban trans kids from school sports. You would think like, oh my God, they're not allowing trans kids to play sports, as opposed to no, you could play sport, you could play sports, but it has to be aligned with your biological sex. Right?
And everybody doesn't get to play sports. No one talks about that.
Right. So let me ask you this:
just don't make the team.
I don't guess
the New York Young Republican Club. You guys can see this, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Based here in Manhattan, routinely hold events with Steve Bannon, Roger Stone, Major Taylor Greene, all right wing who has ties. This is not obviously you.
They probably do. I've never been to a Young Republican Club meeting, but they probably host it. But here's the question to that. One, I don't know what the subject of the email was, because it's weird tying that to the CEC meeting. And secondly, he said they've had events with these people. Maybe I've never been to those events. And then in parentheses, tied to white supremacists. I mean, if you call everybody a white supremacist, of course, I am literally tied to white supremacists because I spoke at an event.
Yeah.
So you can tie anybody to a white supremacist organization. What does that mean exactly?
Also, I mean, guys, I think I need to remind you, we live in a white supremacist culture.
Right. So we all go to white supremacist events.
So by default.
When we go to McDonald's.
I mean, I think in any way, people always try to connect you with whoever they think that the name's gonna make you look bad with, regardless of what you say, But obviously, and this is, when I saw that email, I was very interested, and I was talking to Lou about it. It's like, oh, my friend was involved in it, and that's why, like, we got to go. But again, I think people like trying to make fights out of it, try to gain political points out of it, trying to get like some stuff, and forgetting the main thing, which is what is best for education, kids, all that, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's why we never get to talk about it.
I would be very surprised if all those activists that showed up had any kids in the system itself.
Oh, no, they were pretty open about it. They told you that they did. I mean, some did, but they were like, well, I'm an ally. I'm heterosexual, cisgender, but I'm an ally. Or I am queer, identifies this. These are my pronouns, but I don't have kids in the school. Or some had kids, but my kids are in a different district.
Yeah.
They were saying that. I mean, if you go out and actively say we're going to show up with numbers, what are the chances you're going to find all District 2 parents to be your numbers?
Yeah. And again, it's not only about, the numbers or how many people show up and stuff like that. It's like, it's about, what is best, for the kids, and based on points, like scientific points of view, like what is good. And this is, again, I think there should be a system that govern. Like there should be studies and say, okay, to this age is okay, to that age is not.
And
And
that's what
stuff.
I think. Even if I disagree with you, I would think, well, he's not attacking me. He disagrees with me. I think he's wrong. Let me explain to him why he's wrong. I get what
Exactly.
you say. They don't do that. They're there to intimidate. Why else would you keep saying we're coming there with more money? But with more people, but they're not going to intimidate me because I don't really care. But they
Yeah.
might intimidate somebody. I don't care. Come in and say whatever you want to say. But
Yeah.
it is what it is.
I mean, there is obviously some major things about this in sports, especially I play sport. A lot of people played sport, and it's not only the immediate effect of it. I think when you break a record, when there's a set record for high school, set record for college or whatever, and it's done like this, it's very hard to break that record, as it is. So for female athlete, I think if somebody, and again, this is based on, former athlete, I think there's a Congress hearing one time, and there was, there was a lot of discussion about this. But, again, people like to like you said, instead of this being one meeting, especially it's not a resolution, and move on to talk about other stuff and debate, they just go with their passion and just keep.
And I do want to say the one last thing is one of the people, we don't engage with them. They get to say what they want to say. We don't talk to them. Although some of them tried to force the issue. That'd be interesting when you see the clips. But I was eager. I almost wanted to answer one of them though, because they said, I bet it for those of the 8 of you who voted yes. I'm assuming it's not hate, although I think some of you hate, but it's just ignorance. And I just wonder, before you voted, did you talk to any anyone in the LGBTQ community, or did you talk to any trans people? And inside, I'm internally laughing because I attacked your buddy Mark when he called me MAGA, and I went on Twitter. I usually don't get bothered, but it annoyed me that my borough president is saying that I think XYZ, and I just started sending him a litany of my conversations from the podcast with LGBTQ people. Talk to them all the time. 7 of them trans, some detransitioners, some in the middle of transitioning, some that run LGBTQ organizations. Some people all the time. I want to, like Lou said, I want to hear what people have to say. Afraid to talk to you. Some of them agree with them. Some of them don't agree with them, and some of them somewhere in the middle. Because guess what? They're people like everyone else.
Yeah.
So,
and what like when you spoke to trans athlete, what did they want? What did they?
Well, a lot of them took more of the Caitlyn Jenner approach. I think that biological boys have a greater advantage. We should be able to live like we want. We should be free to do whatever, use our pronouns, what a person want to do, and all that kind of stuff. But I really don't think in high school that they should be. They say ideally there would be a measure, like the one trans woman said, something that you can measure to say, is it unfair or whatever. They said, but no one's ever going to allow that in high school. So, and they said that there's some truth on both sides, and we need to find. It's a complicated issue. This is a complicated issue. But you would respect that more than you would just somebody saying, you don't agree with this, you're a bigot and you're harming kids, right?
Mm-hmm.
And no girls, cisgender, whatever they call girls, no biological girls get to say, they get to, but they're never going to show up in that hostile environment. So it skews and makes it look like that's not the case. So that's the problem. Most of them say that. Most of them say, I agree with the LGBT community on the freedoms. I don't think that it's fair in sports. They say, like I just said, everybody doesn't get to play anyway. If we all went to try out, some of us aren't going to make the team. It's not biased against the slower guy, or biased against the guy who can't hit a 3. There was just a guy better, and we picked that guy. So those are the kids. If sports is so important, what do we do with the kids who thought sports were important but didn't make the team? Do we get a second team? Why don't we do that? Why don't we have a team so everybody can play because sports are important? Because we don't do that, right?
Yeah.
So this is the same thing.
Yeah, can you imagine that? It's like, look, you're really terrible. You're not good enough for varsity. You're not good enough for JV.
Are you talking to me?
Yeah, you're not.
You
look, I've been wanting to tell you this.
Right.
I'm your coach from back in the day. It's like, look, you're a terrible. There's no way you can make the boys' team, but there's a spot for you on the girls' team. If you want to go and play over there, there's a spot for you there. I mean, if we, to hear that, we'd be like, yeah, come on, that's not fair. That's a terrible thing.
But to be fair to them, and in case they watch this, they'll be happy to hear this. You're missing a key important point, whether you agree with it or not. Some of them are activists, some are making a political thing, all that stuff, true. But there's a percentage of them that literally believe that a biological male who identifies as a woman, is exactly the same as a biological woman. So what you're saying is foreign to them. Now, I don't understand what you're saying. Of course they can play the girls team because they're girls, right? So for those people who believe that, like it's just like anybody else. You're not going to convince them because that's what's fair.
And here's the thing too. Like I know years back when people were transitioning, adults we're talking about.
Yeah.
There was a whole protocol. Like they would have to live like for a year or something like that.
Right.
You know, dressing up and or presenting, you know, as a woman before they would get, you know, hormone treatments or, you know, any other of those treatments. And I know that's changed. And I remember the conversation being about, you know, self-ID, the idea that all you have to do is say that you're this, and it has to be accepted, as opposed to, no, like I'm on hormone treatments. I've done, you know, done all this stuff as a way of saying like, no, like I'm medicalizing, you know, my transition. So how does that come to play when you're talking about kids so young? Because if it's like, if it's a self-IDing protocol where, you know, I'm a 17-year-old boy and I'm like, now, you know what, my senior year, I'm a girl and I'm going to play, you know, girl sports without doing anything,
right?
You know, without taking anything. Like, is that what they, you know, what they believe, what they want, as opposed?
Yes, definitely. And that's, I think, the biggest problem. Now, they will say, you know, I always both sides this thing to make sure we're fair because they're not here to do it. They will say that a very small percentage, a very small percentage of people are going to do that, which they're 100% right. The problem is what they won't admit, because it's them and it's like attacking them. There's a very, very small percent of people who are actually trans. You can make all the noise, but it's not like it's 11 million of the 320 odd million people in the country. It's already a small percentage. So, and if you get more of what you incentivize, right? So one of the biggest things I'm against is, and I'm sure that they don't know this, so they really hate this. Usually they're pretty cordial to me because I'm fair, but I, as a black man, hate the what's the act? It's funny now. I can't remember the guy where they want to amend the Civil Rights Act to include gender identity and expression. They voted on it in Congress a couple of times. The Republicans blocked it, or it would have been law. Got like 200 and something votes from the Democrats. It is called the diversity. What is it called? I'll remember in a minute. But what the act does is basically takes the Civil Rights Act and amends it so it has gender identity expression. So that means, one, at some point, why wouldn't you be able to do race? But that means a cisgendered male who's white, who's part of the patriarchy. So we need more diversity is down here. He can identify as a trans woman, and he moves up into the minority status. So now they'll be like, look, the first transgendered Fortune 500 CEO, but he can do that. It's like Zuby, famously, right? I'm identifying as a woman and broke the record in the UK of deadlifting. And then again, you know, I changed my mind. I identify as well. Now, will lots of people do that? No, but will some people do it? Of course. It's no different than the guys who did it in prison, the guys who do it in the lock to get into the locker room, the LA Fitness and all that kind of stuff. Of course, people will do it because they're assuming positive intent because they know what they're not doing it for those reasons, to be fair. What they're ignoring is that there's some terrible people in this world, right? So just like people rob and steal and murder and rape, people will take advantage of situations. So you're going to have that, and the law doesn't cover that. So they'd be able to do whatever they want to do. They'd be able to go back. They, like you say, they don't have to shave. They don't have to, present as what we believe what a woman would look like. They just have to say, I'm a woman, and bam, they instantly overnight become a woman. And it's not that they really think that makes sense. They're just okay with it because they just don't think a lot of people will do it. But I think the number of people who would do it who would see an advantage in it will be a lot larger than they think. Maybe not trying to get into NBA and college sports, but to try to get jobs or minority set-asides or scholarships. We're forgetting how deep this set-asides go. There's cities who have to get contracts with the city that mandates a certain percentage of MBE and WBE contracts or subcontractors. So if you identify as a woman, you can get a WBE contract. That's why a lot of, they call them call them names because that's what you do when you disagree. A lot of people who are fighting in the feminism, who hate shaking their fists at the patriarchy, are now on the other side saying this thing is wrong because they can see how it can go. So it may not be here now, but people can see how it can go down the road, and they're trying to stop that. And people are like, well, that's not what's happening now.
I
So
mean,
what
this
difference
this
does
is
it
kind
make?
of like every other, also like even in race, even in culture, even in religion, like there's always a percentage trying to use that to get. I don't know if it's a big percentage, like you said now, but and they also, you know, messing up for the rest of the people that actually. This is the thing, is like even like when we talk about like we talk about Palestine, Israel, or you know all this, and I have somebody like say pro Palestine, like,
Mhm.
and he is talking crazy shit. I was like, dude, you fucking up my case. Like, can you not do this? You know what I'm saying? So you
Yeah.
always have like. I feel like people need to just with every conversation, like even you know what's interesting, like this conversation. If we take the transgender sports out of it and put anything else, you're gonna find the exact same
The same thing.
response. You're gonna find the exact same thing. People who are passionately fighting and believe like, even if you disagree with them, you're a bigot, you're racist, you're this, and both sides try to cancel each other. You know, I'm sure everybody have an argument, but they should listen. You know,
You know, there's something too about how, you know, I find the whole thing weird, and not in like, oh, well, you know, I'm a cisgender heteronormative, you know, whatever. I find it weird with, it's like, what's a good example? An example I have is I guess like it was probably like a couple of years ago. There was a biological male who transitioned to female, and then I think had like maybe 6 months to a year of mixed martial arts training, and got their first fight in a women's mixed martial arts fight. So here was, I mean, for all intents and purposes, here was a dude who was, I think, former military, who had just transitioned, and the first thing that he or she wanted to do was to fight a woman. And I'm like, there's something else going on, in at least in this particular case,
yeah.
where it's like you transition to a woman, and the first thing you want to do is beat the shit out of a woman. Like, what the fuck, you know?
But that's also a very rare, like,
No, it's a
yeah.
rhythm. It's a rhythm. But then you have people like, you know, like Caitlyn Jenner, who, you know, when Caitlyn was Bruce, was, you know, you know, one of the greatest athletes, you know, to ever, you know, live on Earth. And Caitlyn will be like, yeah, it would be completely unfair for me to transition and then go and start housing women. There's like it's like coming at this particular subject from, you know, from a different way, like one seeming like a little maniacal, and the other seeming like, oh, that person has a good head on their shoulders and understands.
Well, here's
how.
an interesting thing about Caitlyn, though. Caitlyn says that, but then Caitlyn shoots off Lady T's when Caitlyn golfs. So the
Oh, I didn't
difference
know
is, though,
that.
but it's not really competitive. I guess technically you're playing against somebody you're trying to win, but it's not like Caitlyn's winning prizes like, haha, I won $1 million in the women's tournament. Just shoots off Lady T's.
Yeah.
Right? So, but and I really don't. If the other women don't have a problem with that, I don't have a problem with that. If they have a problem with it, you deal with it. But that's still different than trying to win a cash prize or break a record and that kind of deal. That's all we're saying. Is it fair? And I looked it up. I emailed it to you. It's called the Equality Act.
Cool.
Oh, okay.
How could you be against that? Come on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. They have the greatest names. I am
Yeah.
so against it. I think at some point, like you made a point too, Lou, why can't you just, if you can just identify this expression, why can't I express and identify my race?
Yeah.
Right. And they'll say, but that's different. How? The left are the ones who are saying that race is a social construct. So if it's a social construct, can I just pick socially what my race is? So, oh, I love this place has a set aside for Black people. I'm Black. What do you mean?
Right.
You're Black? No, identify as
I
all the protections.
I had a bit that I was working on where I'm 5'10", you know, and there's nothing. And if I told you I was 6 feet tall, you'd be like, nah, Lou, you're 5'10". Like you're not 6 feet tall. But if I told you I was a woman, you'd have to be like, Lou, you are so brave. But yet I am much closer to being 6 feet tall than I am to being a woman. You know,
Right.
just the
So
reality.
how tall are you actually? You're 5'10" in the bit. So what are you, like 5'3"? I got this bit where I'm 5'10".
I got this bit where I'm really short, a lot shorter than I am right now.
Yeah, you're not really 5'10", but
Hatem has stood next to me many times.
There you go.
true. Yeah, but that I guess that's the thing. It's very, I think this, just speaking about this topic, I think a lot of people will be like, oh shit, this is a private kind of conversation. Don't talk about it out there, but at the end of the day, if there's a lot of people going through a lot of stuff, and if people can just listen to each other and not just attack you, saying, I mean, to be fair, there are some people that are bigots in any topic that you talk about, or whatever,
Yes.
and they're gonna mix in the middle and try to
Yeah.
do it,
Mhm.
But also, just like that percentage is low, there's also a low percentage on the other side who's gonna attack anybody that says anything and tell them that you are this and that, and so
Well, I would go against the grain in the current culture though, and say those bigots get to speak too.
they should.
I
Everybody
want to
should.
know you're a bigot. Say it. So
Yeah.
now we know.
Yeah. And not only that, I think when, like like a thing when Trump won, a lot of people were like, oh, I don't talk to my family. I don't do this. A lot of my friends, we lost a lot of friends. It's like, it's not that they changed. You just didn't really know them, did you? You didn't know
Right.
what they were, you react to certain things in a certain way,
Right. And you don't know why they did it, right? It could just be they might be one issue voters and he's on the right side of that issue.
Yeah. Yeah.
Doesn't
And
mean that they think he's great.
and that's the thing is like, some people you can be, for even with the same issue, like with trans athlete, I can be okay with kids in uh I mean, I don't know how young you should be able to transition, but for the kids, I can look at it differently than adults,
Mhm.
stuff like that. You can have different opinions about, and you can change your opinion, and you can learn about your opinion. Like when I listen, like even when I argue about something that I'm very passionate about, whatever that is, I don't listen just to respond. I want to learn. Okay, maybe you know what, I'm wrong. Maybe this, but nobody does that anymore. That's
Right.
why
I
I'm
think the
so.
best example, I mean, the Israel and Hamas issue is a good one, but the best example is abortion. Yes, you can poll people and say 80, 90, whatever high percentage of people support people having the right to have abortion. But what you don't do is ask the follow-up question and say, is there a point where they should stop? Because over 95% of them will say yes. Because they say yes doesn't mean whenever you want to.
Yeah.
Some people say 6 weeks, some 10, some 12, some 14, some 20. When you get into the 20s, that you get really high. Very few people say,
Yeah.
after they're born, whatever. Right.
Yeah.
So just because they support doesn't mean there's no nuance. Or I love the women who say I support it because they're into women power, whatever. It's like, but I would never do it.
Yeah.
But hey, if somebody else wants to do it.
And I think
my favorite one, can I just say my favorite one are the people who say if men could get pregnant, abortion would be like a sacrament or something like that, like a holy act. And I mean, if you look at the numbers, the breakdown, if men could get pregnant, about half of them would be against abortion, the same thing with women. It's like, yeah. So.
I mean, like even like I'll take it like to even when they call Trump supporters, it's like, oh, they're racist, they ignorant, they stupid. That you have 73 million people voted for him. Not all of them are that. A lot of them are actually very good, but like you said, they agree with him in one issue, or he is the better in their opinion.
Yeah, they're anti-Biden, right?
Yeah,
that's possible.
And same thing with Biden, exactly. Like you have how many million of people. We can't generalize with everything. Like the war itself is like, oh, these guys are bad, those guys are awful. Nobody's 100% everything. But you gotta take responsibility. More importantly, you have to be consistent. You cannot be like in one thing. Oh, this is awful. But when you do it, when you own people, a lot of times I say, like, especially like with the war, I think a lot of people have become treated like sports team. Like I am pro-Israel, like I'm a Yankee fan. No matter what, they always right. Or I'm pro-Palestine. Whatever they do, what does that mean?
Right.
Be human. Like something wrong. Lou, focus. I'm talking to you because I don't like your stand. Be human.
This is very much. This is direct to me.
Yeah, because I don't like a lot of low stands on that. But yeah, it's and I think that's a good conversation to have. I'm surprised that a lot of Mark and the mayor and all that were not involved directly in an issue like that, because this is very important. Have you talked to the mayor a lot? Was he showed up in?
None of them respond. I mean, we do every district does a meeting with the chancellor. So next month, Chancellor Banks is going to be there, but it's just going to be a circus. They're going to bring double the amount of people. The other side will actually bring people to that, because even if they don't want to, they'll have to suffer through it because they care about, school preference or zone schools or attendance or admission. That's the only time they can be face to face and hear them speak. So they're going to show up. So there'll be lots of people. There'll be lots of, animosity.
How
But
about a couple of doctors, couple of experts in the situation, like scientifically, and they will say what is right and what's wrong.
Well, they have to get in line, I guess, and speak up, right? Like they get a minute and a half.
Like everybody else, right? Yeah. We don't invite people to speak at it, right? We have to speak. I mean, unless they were part of the DOE. And so that's the thing. I mean, I've invited Chancellor Banks to be on the podcast a couple of times, haven't gotten a response. When they attacked us on Twitter, I replied, so that's probably mean I'm not going to get a yes. But Lou will tell you, I don't attack people on the podcast. I'll ask him honest questions he probably can't answer, but I'm not going to attack him.
Yeah.
You haven't started. If you're so big on the gender thing, I can ask some of the questions because he's never going to come. Why'd you run all boys schools? Yeah, he used to run all boys schools. So gender mattered then.
Yeah, I think I think you should able to ask any question and people should be able to answer. But more importantly, in stuff like that, debate that goes forever is useless. The most important thing is like get expert and have a policy that goes through the schools. And
but keep in mind, we're debating a resolution from the previous month. So we didn't say anything about it. The public session, they're allowed to say what we want. We didn't say, except for a few people who got frustrated. So when they were being attacked, they responded. But in general, it would be like, they say whatever, we're silent. Okay,
yeah, but
back to class size, because that's not why we're here. That's last month.
Yeah, but that's the world we live in now. Like even like the only story that make from District 2 like in the news was that. It's not gonna tell you if you accomplish anything. Nobody cares if you accomplish something. Nobody cares if you solve a lot of problems or agree. We only want you to fight. That's what we want. That's what news are,
Yeah, if we're talking about normal things, there's nobody. I mean, you'd be shocked. It'd be five people at the meeting.
Yeah.
What are you saying?
Yeah. No, and then you see it too, like with how many of like the cities and localities where they're passing resolutions for a ceasefire in Gaza, and it's like,
why didn't that work? I'm surprised. That's the one thing I am surprised about. I mean, I was kind of iffy on San Francisco, but when Chicago did it, I mean, they know violence.
Yeah.
So when Chicago passed it, I thought it was a done deal. Apparently, that maybe they didn't send it over to the people they're supposed to send it to, or something.
Well, it's amazing. It's just like wow, these are just unserious people who are in charge of serious things.
Well, let's see if you're right. Did they pass a resolution in Chicago for a ceasefire? In Chicago?
In Chicago, right? Yeah.
No, they didn't pass that resolution.
Yeah, that's the thing is like a lot of the things doesn't involve the people that actually in the problem.
Right?
Yeah.
People always think that they know best. Like I see, like especially being from the Middle East, I see all these experts talking and he is like, oh, well, they're going to do this. And I was like, you haven't spent one day in the middle. You don't know what you're talking about. You have no idea what you're talking about, but it's crazy. So I guess we talked this for the whole hour.
To another topic.
Yeah, we talked that. Well, let's talk quickly about the Trump trial. Just want to get your opinion on it. Lou, let's go with you. What are you thinking of this? Is it fair? Is it not fair? Is it
which trial? I don't even
going on right
know.
now.
You have to zero that down.
Dude, I don't know, man. When that topic comes up, I usually like to just hear what you guys have to say about it.
This is the first ever criminal trial for a president.
That's funny though, because I'm kind of Lou. I don't pay attention. I haven't seen anything. I think, but to answer your question, it is interesting in the sense two things can be true at one time. He could be guilty of doing what they say he did, but it could be something that he did that other politicians have done, but they're only going after him for whatever reason they're going at. So I don't think on either side, like you say, people pick their team. There's enough people considering, well, I'm a big Trump fan, but he might have actually done this. Or I hate Trump and I think he might have done it. Be real about why they're going that. No, I mean, how are you? Here's the best way to do it. Lou had the best point with Trump. Whatever you think Trump is, he is not a bad enough politician or businessman that he should be the only politician with 99 cases against him.
Yeah.
So maybe if he had 4, that'd be fine. Or if he had 90 and the average politician had 80, but 99 is 0? Really?
Yeah.
And he's doing business the way New York business. I mean, we literally, if you go watch The Men Who Built America and you watch Carnegie and Rockefeller and the way they did business, right? And you're like, Trump did more stuff than they did?
Yeah.
I mean, they did everything they could to crush competition, threaten violence, buy up all the materials, pay off politicians, the whole nine. That's one thing. He hasn't been accused of paying off a politician, right? Yeah, has he? Oh, he's not even serious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the thing.
That's the first thing you do is buy and put a politician in your pocket. Where's Boss Tweed?
Yeah. And I think this is like one of the two things that I wanted to say is like, one is like when you start accusing somebody of everything, people don't take you serious anymore because he's done some shit that you should, but when you keep saying like, oh, he did this, and every time he become innocent, there's a lot of people that be like, you know what, this is a political trial, and then, and this is Noam's point that he's not, for this specific trial, his lawyer told him, pay this from your own money. He didn't know it was supposed to come from the campaign money. He's not a lawyer. He have a lawyer. That's why we all have lawyers. You ask your lawyer what it is, and they pay. And he runs a multi-billion-dollar, company. How is he supposed to know how he's going to write a check? So there's bigger things that he's done.
About. What is this trial? What is this?
Which one is it? Is
this one is the hush
Daniels?
money that he paid to.
I thought that we already did Stormy.
They're still doing that?
Yeah. This is the first criminal charge against him. So this is the first one. So they saying that he's supposed to pay Stormy Daniels from the campaign money, not from his own money. So you and me and old ladies give Trump money, he pays the hookers with it. That's what's supposed to be.
Oh, that's what's supposed to work.
You're supposed to pay
not his own money, but the campaign money. So it's
Lou, you've been paying the hookers with the wrong money.
Dude, man, no wonder my taxes are all messed up this year.
Yeah, but that's the thing is like, stuff like that, it's gonna work for his benefit. I think a lot of people seeing it's political thing is gonna work. And this is again what we say in this whole podcast. Like whatever your opinion is, stick to the right thing, Don't just attack anything for anything, any reason, But
and I stick to the opinion that I don't care unless it matters.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is why I'm like, we're talking about this again, and I scream at the board meeting. Why are we still talking about this?
I hope this comes up at your next board meeting, that they're going to talk about just Trump and we need to teach our kids not to pay for hookers out of their pockets. They need to pay out of a PAC, the hooker PAC.
Right.
From the campaign money, the money that people donate to you. That's what. But again, and another thing, the prosecutor Trump ran the election for getting Trump. Like
I was saying that if you vote for me, I'm going to prosecute Trump.
Yeah.
But doesn't that tell you it's political?
Exactly.
I'm not trying to make your life better in any way. I'm going after Trump.
And this is what I was saying in the beginning about my question with culture of politics. Like people used to run is like, I'm going to make New York a better place. I'm going to make it a safe place. I'm going to arrest criminal. I'm going to do instead, I'm going to prosecute Trump. It's crazy. So, well, good luck to you in the meeting, Charles. I hope one day they will bring expert and do what's best for the kids. And they listen to each other. It
would never happen.
You look like a reasonable guy to me. I don't know, like if you're different in the meetings, but why are you not listening? I don't get it. But I think there must be some people fighting for the right reason. So I hope. I always say that with both sides, whenever there's an argument for both sides, like there's some people that fuck it up, they're just ignorant and just like attack everybody. But there are some passionate people about their point of view. And I hope experts can resolve this. Lou, you're not reasonable at all. So,
well, I hope you're right.
Yeah.
I'm not that hopeful for it happening, but I hope you're right.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope you can find the other
Thanks
person.
for having me on.
Yeah. Do you want to tell people where they can follow you, where they can listen to your podcast and all that?
Well, the podcast is Cut the Bull. You can Google that. You can listen to it on all the apps or watch it on YouTube. You can get me on Twitter at CDouglasLove3. I think that's my Twitter handle. I never really say my own Twitter handle. And I actually talk about education. So I'm the executive director of a nonprofit called Seeking Educational Excellence. And so we're doing a roundtable series where we go to the inner city and talk to people about actual education issues. We did one in Chicago. Go and watch that and check that out on the Cut the Bull page. And I'm going to Atlanta next, and we're just going to travel the country and talk about actual education issues. So there'll be very little talk of trans or Trump at these places.
What's the number one educational issue for you, or top three?
Parental involvement. I think they need to be involved both in the child's education, but also when they don't like something, they need to speak to the school and need to push back. If you want to change legislation or something like that, it's going to have to come from the parents. So parental involvement. I think lack of awareness. I don't think people know just how bad it is. I don't know if people know that if they throw a dart at any place, USA, inner city, rural, rich kids, poor kids, black, white, whatever, there's a good chance that 31% of them cannot do reading or math at grade level. I don't think that people think it's that bad. So that's nearly a third across the board, even in affluent cities. Obviously, it's worse than other places. And you wanted three. For me, the third one is the dangers of culturally responsive teaching. I think that is not being done in a way that really advances anybody culture. I call it drive-by culture, where they tell a story and they'll put an Indian or a disabled kid or a gay person in the story. Hey, we just taught you about them. So it's like blanket, high-level, stereotypical nonsense. And too many Black people like the sound of it. And it's like, no, that's cool. They're going to teach Black history. And they don't realize it's not Black history. It's just stick a Black kid in a story and things of that nature. And then these kids walk away, especially when they do it with young kids, with a really confusing view of what it's like to be Native American, to be Palestinian, to be Black, to be gay. Right. You become a caricature of what those things are. So, and it's wasting time and resources from actually teaching kids. I can give you 17 more, discipline, not being able to get rid of people, teachers, quality because the way they're taught at education schools, keeping them around once they're seasoned and they know what they're doing, resources, but not, bringing in more money, how it's spent, and I can keep going. But yeah, that's some of them.
Oh, well, if you want to know more, listen to Cut the Bull podcast,
Yep.
What about you, Lou? People want to find you, like literally.
Yeah,
they want to find you.
Your address and phone number and all that kind of stuff.
Go to thelouperez.com. All my stuff is there.
And what else is happening soon?
Soon we have Hatem and I, we were putting on a show at the Williams Center in Rutherford, New Jersey, April 27th. It's called The Next Big Thing, All-Star Comedy. It should be a great show.
Charles, if you're around, you're always invited.
I thought I was going to meet him in here in New York when he came to debate Michael Ian Black, bought tickets and everything, and it was the same day as the school board meeting. So I had to go get yelled at as a bigot and a racist. Sorry, I had other things to do.
Well, next one. Well, guys, thank you so much. Live from America at comedycellar.com. You can email us, and we'll see you soon next week. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.